Good morning, friends, and welcome back. The irony of this video is that this is to help you make some beautiful springtime / Easter bottles, and we're supposed to get a big snowstorm tonight into tomorrow. So with that said, I will show you how I made these bottles. So my husband got this box of bourbons that they had 5 different flavors in there, and when all of these were done, we took, by the way, he had a bourbon tasting party, so he didn't go through all of that by himself. We had some of the neighbors over who loved their bourbon, and I put some very, very hot water in the sink, as hot as I could. Let these sit for about 10 minutes. You want to make sure the bottles are still in very hot water, and took one of these straight edge razors and just removed as much of the label as I could. And I have made the mistake of letting the water cool off, thinking that it would just soak the labels off, but it doesn't. It really helps to do this while the water is still hot. So maybe at the longest, I just let them soak in very hot water for 10 minutes, then take the straight edge, remove all of this. Then I just take a knife and put it under this little plastic piece that these were plastic labels. So I took that off. Then I thoroughly rinsed the bottle inside and out and dried it off. And if you've got any stubborn pieces left of the adhesive, just take some of this 100% acetone that you can get in any CVS or drugstore, put it on a cotton swab, and it will remove any traces of that stickiness or residue. So I'm doing something a little different today. I am using multi-surface paints. These are acrylic paints that can go over several different types of surfaces: glass, wood, metal, etc. And I found them in these beautiful springtime colors, which I couldn't really get in the chalk paint. Something that I'm not wild about with this is you need to put this in the oven. So you have to paint the bottle, and I was not happy with how sheer this was, but that might actually be a benefit because it gives a different effect than the chalk paint. It's very light and sheer. Now, I wasn't wild about the streaks that the brush was leaving, and it turns out they stay there after you put this in the oven. You let it dry, the streaks are still there. When you put it in the oven, it bakes the streaks in. So I tried using a roller brush and a sponge brush. It still didn't work that well. You could see every line, so that might just be a function of this type of paint. Another reason I prefer to use chalk paint. You can see here I switched to a roller, and this is when I already had some paint on there. It's still wet, so the roller got rid of the streaks, but you can see that now I've got these like kind of gritty, grainy looking, I guess it's air bubbles, that I was hoping would come out as the bottle dried, but they did not. So went over to the sponge brush, and I said, okay, let's see how the sponge brush works. Okay, it looks like the sponge brush works the best out of the 3 brushes, and I should probably be using a little less paint than I am. I think the problem for me is that this paint is just too sheer. I like a much thicker coat over the glass, but this has its charms too. So in any case, I finished painting each bottle in a different springtime color, and then I followed the instructions according to what the manufacturer said, which is to allow them to dry for 24 hours. I put them aside to dry overnight into the next day, so that it was a good 24 hours. I am just not wild about all of this streakiness. I never get that with the chalk paint. But anyway, what I decided to do was to go ahead and put them in the oven, because that bakes these paints right onto the glass. Then, according to the manufacturer, you want to put these in a cool oven and set the oven to 350 degrees. You want to let the bottles warm up with the oven, leave it on for a half an hour once it reaches 350, and let them cool down with the oven so that the glass doesn't crack. Okay, finally, after all of that is done, the bottles are all cooled off and ready to decoupage. And what I'm going to do is take several different napkins that I think fit the bottle colors and look very spring-like. And what I'm going to do is cut out a section just to fit right over the bottle. And in order to make it a lot easier to cut these napkins, before I separate them, I took a glue stick and I put it over some junk mail. I placed the napkin down over the junk mail, and then I cut out the shape that I wanted to fit over the bottle. I then just pulled the top ply of the napkin away, and now I decoupaged it right over the center of the bottle. And I want to use Viva Decor's napkin decoupage glue. I'll have a link for this right under the video. And you want to take a brush that's very soft, as opposed to some of these have really hard bristles on them. You want to take a very soft brush, and the angle brush works best. And this dry technique is where you just lay the napkin down over the dry surface. Start in the center with a lot of decoupage glue, actually the napkin decoupage glue on that brush, and move the brush outward in all directions until you've got the napkin decoupage down over your surface. So I did this with all 5 of my bottles. And the oven is all cooled off now. So what I did was I put the bottles, right after I decoupaged them, back into a cool oven and set it to 170 degrees. And when it reached 170, I turned it off and left these in there for a little while. And the reason that I do that is because even if you've got any little wrinkles or air bubbles, it tends to bring them right out. Now I want to frame these edges. So I'm going to take this trim, and I'm going to cut out pieces of it that fit both sides and the tops of this napkin that I cut out. And I'm going to lay a small bead of the E6000 glue, which holds forever, over the top section of this napkin. Then I'm going to take that little piece of trim that I just cut out and place it down pretty securely. And I'm just going to go around the edge of all of my napkins and trim it this same way. By the way, after you cut the trim, you might want to put a little bit of the E6000 on the edge so that that doesn't fray, on the edge of whatever type of trim you're using around here. And you can find a lot of these beautiful trims in the wedding department of any craft store, or you can go to your favorite fabric store. There's some big box fabric stores and then some right around the corner from you that have these beautiful trims and things that you can use to make these bottles just as pretty as you want them. I then wanted to cover up the neck of the bottle here, and I unfortunately didn't get enough trim to make that consistent, but that's okay. I took a sheer ribbon and I folded it in half and just used the E6000 around the back of this again. You can use the Fabri-Tac if you'd like, because that's another very good glue. However, the E6000 works just as well, and because I really wanted this to stick to the bottle, I used the E6000. And now I'm taking this really pretty trim that I found, same thing in the fabric store, and I cut out a section to go around this top part, and I actually used 2 rows of these crystals. So I took 1 row and I added the E6000 to the back of it, and I placed it at the base part of this neck of the bottle. Made sure I glued that on there pretty tightly. I took the second piece and put it up closer to the top of the bottle, and I staggered the crystals a little bit so that it would look a little bit more full. And I put everything aside to dry, and here is how our bottles look. By the way, I took 1 stem of cherry blossoms from the craft store and just cut up 2 branches off of the stem for each bottle, and here's how the individual bottles look. So these are more for Easter / springtime. And one thing I want to mention, this bottle looks a little different as far as the paint goes because this is not a pearl finish, which I actually preferred. The other bottles are all done in a pearl finish, which might have been my problem. For me, they were a little too sheer, and this is how each one of the bottles looks individually. This is supposed to be a lavender color on here. It's a little bit hard to see. This one's probably my favorite because it's got those beautiful pink lilies on it. And by the way, I actually poured white chalk paint inside of this bottle because it was so sheer you could see right through it, and I just didn't like it, and the napkin wasn't showing up that well. So the white chalk paint poured inside of it really seemed to help. This is the one with butterflies on it. Pink ribbon at the top is all the same, and it's all consistent along with the flowers so that I could tie all of these bottles together. And then finally, the last bottle are the cherry blossoms. Again, I had to pour white chalk paint inside of the bottle. They still look really pretty, and they are perfectly fit for springtime / Easter time. I'll show you a bunch of different shots that I took of them even in the morning, the following day. I don't know if you could tell through the window there, it's nighttime. But I'm sure you've all heard that it's a decorating rule or a plus when you put groups of 3, 5, 7, or 9 together. And that's one of the reasons I was excited to have all 5 of these bottles, so I could do different napkins on them, different colors, but tie them all together using the pink ribbons up at the top, the same trim, and the same flowers to go inside. And here are some different pictures the following day. So you can see that it is a beautiful spring day behind these bottles in the background. That's supposed to change to a very snowy day. So keep us in your good thoughts out there, guys. We already lost power over a very bad storm 2 days ago. Trees down, branches down. Part of my porch got destroyed. We've got a lot of work to do for spring cleanup, and now we're going to get some snow, even though it's almost springtime. We're getting in that mode for Easter, for springtime, for rebirth. And thank you so much for watching my video, for subscribing, for sharing my videos. It's a huge help to me when you subscribe, when you go through any of the links that I post on Facebook so that you can make purchases of products that I suggest through Amazon. It's a big help to me when you go through my links. Do all of your shopping that way. It's still a huge help to me. And there's my cat who wants to look out the window at the springtime, and I'm getting in her way, so I'm going to end the video now and let you know I am over on Facebook at Upcycle with Decoupage. If you would like to come over and like and follow the page, you'll be notified every week when I put new videos out. I will be adding some DIY furniture videos over on Patreon, where there is a charge, but those furniture videos do take a very long time to make. You can imagine that's pretty time consuming, and I can tell you all the tips and tricks for decoupaging furniture, how to make it last and how to care for it. Also, since you are paying to watch those videos, and it's normally between $1 and $5 depending on the video, I will get back to you about all of your questions if you are over on Patreon. Unfortunately, I can't get back to everyone on YouTube these days. So, my friends, thank you so much for subscribing. Thanks for all of your lovely comments and suggestions. I will be back next week with another video, and I hope you guys are experiencing lovely weather. If you're not now, we soon will be, right? So happy springtime. I'll see you next week, guys. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.